Alright guys, so we're learning as we go through this. This is my very first time live streaming, as you guys I'm sure are aware of. I haven't really done it on my channel before. Just got a notification that said my audio was too low. They couldn't hear my voice over it. But we're going to go ahead and try it again. And hopefully it works this time. If not, no worries. And I'll re-upload this video somehow with better audio. So we'll go ahead and make it work. So everyone's super excited about the F-16 coming out here, and I just don't have the time today to do a whole video, put it together, upload it, all that stuff in a timely manner for you guys to see the awesome new toy that we have to play with. So I've set up a little scenario here. We've got some fun stuff to play with. We've got some GBU-12s on the jet, a lightning targeting pod. We've got some targets out in the Creech range, as well as we've got some QF-4s out there to shoot down as well. So nothing too much of a threat, as well as I've placed some Russian radars in the area, so we can play with the RWR a little bit, see how that works. And I've watched and studied a lot of WAG's videos, and I've studied stuff on the internet, things like that. Not everything on the internet is the exact same make and model that we have here, a USAF roughly 2007 Block 50 Viper. You know, there's lots of different variants of the Viper. Countries ask for different modifications to them, things like that. So we'll do the best we possibly can. So why don't we go ahead and hop in the office and get started. Or actually before that, the external model looks really, really nice on the Viper. The love and work that was put into the landing gear animations was quite something that WAG showed off for us. And it seems like ED has put a lot of work into this module, and it's really cool that now that they kind of have a framework for making modern jets and have the technology to develop it. Seems like the F-16 went pretty darn fast in comparison to the FA-18. Hopefully these things can be leveraged for Razbam's F-15E. Of course, we've got some F-15Es hanging out around here because it's Nellis Air Force Base, and that would be really nice. Can't wait till we have an F-15E, that's for sure. Alright, let me check my notifications here on Discord, just make sure things are going well, because I honestly can't see what's going on the channel right now, because last time I tried to look, NVIDIA decided to take a dump and had to restart my computer. So let's go ahead and hop in the office and get started. Alright, so all my controls are set up based on what I heard from Wags' videos and things. Things are in a lot of the standard areas you would imagine them to be in for an American designed jet. You know, lighting controls on the right hand side, other controls on left, the engine controls around the throttle, lighting controls around there as well, air-to-air refueling controls. So we got everything lit up here in the cockpit, and we'll go ahead and get started with our taxi. Now I did taxi around a little bit and flew around a little bit, dropping some dumb bombs and things, just to make sure I had my controls right before I went ahead and did a live stream here. So our flight plan shouldn't be too long, as we can see here on our HSD page, horizontal situation display. That makes sense. Just looking around the cockpit, I kind of had the initial impression that the F-16 is not as computerized as the F-18, but not nearly as analog as like the F-14. I would say it's somewhere in the middle. I think even though this is a 2007, circa 2007 Block 50 Viper, you can see a lot of the design philosophy of the original F-16 in the fact that it was one of the very first, if not first, fly-by-wire airplanes, and came to the scene a few years before the FA-18 did, with the FA-18 coming online somewhere in the 1985 time range, if I'm correct on that, as where the F-16 came into being, or at least the F-16 A variant, the first Block 10s and things, came out in 1979, with USAF squadrons getting them, and then of course countries like Israel getting them very soon after in like the 1981-ish time frame. So you can see that I think the designers were a little bit more skeptical of this all-digital cockpit and digital interfaces than the designers at McDonnell Douglas and Northrop of the FA-18. The FA-18's got is just a bit more computerized and more centralized on the computers and things, whereas we've got these big steam analog gauges right here on the center console. We've got a full-on kind of old-style HSI, physical HSI, rather than a digital HSI like on the FA-18. Instead of there being a third screen here like on the F-18, we just got two very small screens, and while these are color, and that's very, very certainly a big bonus, they are very small, and I have noticed that I've definitely had to zoom in so far to make sure to see all the stuff that's on them. So we'll go ahead, we've got the nose wheel steering turned on, and we'll go ahead and start taxiing here. We'll flip off those labels for now. So we'll just go ahead and push up the throttle a bit. And we can see some friends here on the ramp, hanging out cold and dark. Man, when the F-15E comes out, that's going to be lights out. I'm going to be flying DCS 24/7, that's for sure. Alright, so it looks like we got a nice cloud hanging right over the sun right there. Perfect. Or over there. And we'll get some power going to our RWR. Probably shouldn't have done that during a taxi, but whatever. Making sure we stay on the center line. Now, one thing I noticed right off the bat while I was just kind of figuring out my controls and things is the F-16 likes to go fast. Just like the F-14 Tomcat, you can go fast in a hurry. And it really just shows off just how sluggish of a fighter jet the F-18 really is. With the F-18 Super Hornet being even slower. Especially with those weird canted out pylons. Alright. So one thing I noticed right off the bat here is, of course, like we all know in the F-16, we have this beautiful, brilliant bubble canopy that we can just see anything for days out of. And it's really, really interesting and really, really cool. However, one of the things that pilots converting over to the F-16 initially had trouble with was getting into vertigo while flying through IMC conditions, because you're up here in this brilliant, beautiful bubble, and you don't have the canopy bows and the canopy struts and the really small porthole to look through, like on the F-14 or the canopy bow on other jets, to kind of keep you grounded in the cockpit. And I can definitely see that happening. I flew through a couple clouds trying to just get my controls set up and ready to go, and I could, 110% see that happening to pilots as they fly through IMC in the F-16 on their very first fly through or something like that. Another interesting kind of historical thing that some older pilots from the post-Vietnam era in the early 1980s would said about the F-16 is because the stick doesn't move and just deals with pressure. A lot of new F-16 pilots, or pilots converting over to the F-16 especially, from like F-4s or even F-15s, F-5s, what have you, there would always be a slight left wing drop on takeoff as they reach for the gear handle, because moving your weight to the left as you reach your left arm out to get the gear handle down here just puts just enough pressure on the stick here, if you're not careful, that it'll definitely drop your left wing on takeoff. So, kind of a fun little fact. I'm going to check my notifications here, make sure. Hopefully the live stream's working. Everything seems to be working. Hopefully the audio is taken care of. Definitely had some weird audio going on. Alright, so let's go ahead and take off. Whoop. Okay, nose wheel steering, of course. And we'll go ahead and rotate. And that acceleration on takeoff with pretty heavy load, some external fuel tanks, a couple bombs and things, is really quite different from the relatively sluggish takeoff roll of an F-18 with a more or less same loadout. Alright, pull her out of burner. And you already see we're already going 500 knots. It's pretty unbelievable performance right there. And we'll start making our way over to waypoint 2. And cool, we've got our RWR working. That's the first RWR indication I've seen. So we got 2 QF4s out there. Hopefully they're playing nice in their orbit. Sometimes DCS world orbits don't always work the way you want them to. Alright, there's our waypoint out there. The navigation's a little bit interesting. We don't have a bug on our heading tape the way we used to. It's really just kind of following this tadpole, and this tadpole doesn't necessarily point directly to our waypoint from what I'm seeing here. It's more or less trying to get us to our course that we've set up in the mission editor to that waypoint rather than directly to that waypoint. I wonder if there's got to be some sort of a setting that changes that, and it looks like that HSI down there is not connected to our INS system for the waypoints. North, we got a heading of 280 or 290-ish, and so no, doesn't look like it is. That's alright, we'll make it work. So our tadpole is definitely pointing towards our course, it looks like. I wish on our HSD here, well, I guess it does show us where we are. I guess we must be right in the center here. Alright. Well, next thing we want to do is make sure our targeting pod is good to go. And as we get closer to these F4s over here, we'll go ahead and turn on our HSD, or HMD. Just a happy little cloud. Yeah, and we're just cruising along just a little bit under mil power at 440 knots. That's a bit of a difference from our friend the F-18. Definitely still trying to figure out these navigation indications. Got 2 GBU-12s. We'll go ahead with a nose fusing. We'll drop singles, of course, because they're laser-guided bombs. And we're going to go ahead and put this in CCRP, and we'll go back to navigation mode. And our RWR, we can see we've got an SA6, a SA3, I think, and then an SA2 on top of the search radar. Those SA3s and SA2s are hard to see because of that search radar. Let's go ahead and fence in, master arm on. So our target area should be out there as we fly on up to Creech Air Force Base. It's interesting going Lockheed Martin, originally General Dynamics, seems to have definitely taken a different approach to avionics than the F-18. Whereas I see a lot of similarities between the F-18 and the AV-8B, which makes sense being both MDD products. There are almost no similarities here other than the cockpit layout and the fact that you have soft keys around the screen. And it definitely takes a little bit getting used to not having a canopy bow for reference to things. That's definitely interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and make a 270 degree turn to our left here and get ready to engage those F4s that are out there. Hopefully they're still out there. Yep, looks like they're still in their orbit, so that's good. I had them up at 20,000 feet, so we'll go ahead and push on up, go up to 20,000. One thing I've noticed is haven't had any performance issues in terms of frames per second with the F-16 so far. I know that I do have kind of a stomping rig. Continue this 270 degree turn. Go ahead and check notifications here. Just make sure we're good to go there. Alright, so we're flying on out here towards waypoint 2. And let's go ahead and get the radar going. So yep, there we go. There's our two F4s, so that's cool. That works. Now one thing I don't think I mapped, and I'm not sure of, is exactly how to lock these guys up. So we're in range while scan at the moment. And neither have I figured out the autopilot yet. Got a 4-bar scan, range while scan. Okay, so it is target management button or whatever it's called. That's interesting. Alright, so we got a single track lock on this guy. Oop. Did we just lose him? Yep, looks like we lost him. That's alright. Alright, we're just going to go with a single track lock. We're going to go with aim 120 to shoot down one of these guys, and we'll go with an aim 9 for the second one. Why not? Of course, we're using a ton of fuel in Afterburner with our big GE F110 engine. And we can see our two F4 friends out there. They're just little teeny tiny dots. Alright, that wasn't the best missile launch ever, but that'll work. And splash one F4. I really honestly didn't realize how close they were for a second here. I didn't really notice the range bar, so we'll go ahead and go into aim 9X. And we'll go into dogfight mode, foresight mode, trying to, right, we gotta take it out of slave mode, go into boresight mode. Cool. We'll wait till it's a little bit more high off boresight, just for the heck of it. And Fox 2, and splash another QF4. So, not the best engagement in the world, but hey, still working on these new avionics. Alright, so we'll go ahead and take him out of dogfight mode, go to air to ground mode, ground mode. Ah, there we go. Perfect. Kind of have to wiggle around with the dogfight cycle button a bit. Alright, so we'll go ahead and give ourselves a little bit of space. Let's see, HSD. Alright. So we're going for waypoint 3, I think. Still trying to figure out the navigation stuff on the HUD. How's our fuel doing? Pretty okay. Well, I thought I was going to miss the IFE a lot. That is on the Hornet. It's really not a big deal swapping through and looking at your fuel here on that little gauge. It's actually quite handy and very easy to see, which is nice. Alright, let's see where we are, just for helping myself out here's sake. Alright, I remember the video showing how to change the laser code in the pod, but I don't remember how to do it, so hopefully we're not too screwed. Definitely have an asymmetric loadout. Interesting that the store's management fired both the left-hand missiles and kept the right-hand missiles. That is interesting, and we'll go ahead and get rid of this guy for now. Giving ourselves a bit of a wide berth here. Yep, we're near to ground. Alright, cool. It's already unstowed. We're on 1688, so yeah, that'll work, since that's the default code for DCS. And we'll go ahead and make a nice turnaround. Well, she definitely isn't as fast and doesn't want to go as fast as the F-14. She still wants to cruise a heck of a lot faster than the FA-18. The F-14's got the same engines as this bird does, just two of them, and it's quite an engine. Even a lot of the new F-15 customers of recent years have wanted F-110 engines in their F-15s. Wide, narrow. Looks like it's in the right spot. I guess we'll see. And once we get our bombs off the jet, we'll go ahead and fly on back to Nellis and do a bit of aerobatics if we've got some time. Yeah, this is where I wish I knew how to work the autopilot. Comes in. HSD. Weapon? No. SMS, stores management. Yep, that's it. Nose, CCRP. So I think and we'll go sensor select down to get a soy on our pod. Oh, so used to the target controls on the F-18, don't know what I'm doing here. Ah, okay. There's our target. Yeah, we're going indicated airspeed of 400 knots. I did not realize we were going that fast for a second there. Okay, that looks like a better place where our target might be. Maybe. Hopefully we can find our target. Let's go ahead and pause it for a second and just make sure we know. So that's waypoint 1, 2, 3. SMS. HSD. Oh, okay. Okay, that should be it. Okay, yeah, that's better. Okay, cool. Got that. So we can go back to the SMS. Alright. Have a bit of a crosswind here. Ah, okay, cool. And we'll go ahead and move our target. Alright. We can try and put him into point track mode. Alright, cool. So we're good to go there. Let's go ahead and arm our laser. Alright, looks like we're lined up here. I do note I have to move myself in my track IR a little bit different here in the Viper. I feel myself having to reset my view a bit more than I do in the Hornet. Alright, it's coming down. And pickle. Wait a second here and then we'll start our laser. Thankfully we don't have anything actually shooting at us right now because that would be an absolute disaster. And it looks like it's tracking. So we got that going for us, which is nice. And we can zoom our target on back out and watch it explode. And boom. Cool. And it is masked. Alright. So we'll go around for a second pass. How's our gas? Looking pretty good. Still climbing up to about 400 knots indicated. It's interesting to me how fast this jet wants to go. Guess these clouds are just hanging out over the Las Vegas area. I think that the method of using laser-guided bombs in conjunction with a targeting pod is, so far, I think it's easier in the Viper than in the F-18. In terms of flying aerobatics with the Viper, I think that she flies kind of halfway between the way the Hornet and the what am I trying to say? The Hornet and the Mirage flies. It's an interesting mixture of the two. It feels a bit more restrictive than the Hornet's FCS. But at the same time, it feels a little bit more precise, but it does not feel anywhere near the restrictiveness that the Mirage's FCS feels like. Yeah, let's line up our next victim here. Any more trucks around? Let's bring it over here. Cool. And I think they have a bit more work into the pod here in the F-16 because it feels a lot snappier and a lot better. The point track system likes to snap onto things a lot better than they do in the F-18. Also, I really like it, and it makes up for the lack of the third screen that our RWR scope is right there, rather than buried underneath the DDI on the F-18, because I don't have to have an EW page open the whole time here, making sure that I'm not getting shot at by something, which is always helpful to know when you're getting shot at. I've seen a bunch of F-16 demos at air shows and things, and I think they're always very impressive. And it's pretty cool to be able to have that here in DCS now. Yeah, still trying to figure out the avionics and things and how to figure out exactly where our targets are and things like that, so sorry for overshooting that so terribly. Right on the edge of a cloud. Perfect. Oh boy. Reline this guy up. And here comes the bomb fall line. And we'll start pressing the trigger. And sayonara bomb. We'll wait a second here. And we'll start lasing. Yeah, this feels a lot more ergonomic than the way the Hornet deals with this. I don't know why, but it took me a long time to get the feel for how to do it in the Hornet, whereas this is literally my first full flight in the F-16, and I can more or less get it right away. And splash. Cool. Alright, we'll go ahead and safe up this laser. We've got all of our QF4s splashed. We've got our bombs are away. We've got 2 missiles left. That does kind of bug me that both of those fired on the left side. It just contributes to an asymmetrical loadout. But I probably missed something. There's probably some way to step through the missiles, but it's alright. Okay. Why don't we go ahead and try shooting the gun. Now in the video, for whatever reason, Wags put in a value of 8,000 for the slant range here, so we'll go ahead and try that. Interesting too is the UFC seems to be less of an integral part of delivering weapons and munitions in the F-16. I don't know if that's a result of it being early access currently, but just an interesting side note here. So why don't we go ahead and do a split S here. And get ready for some shooting. So there's one of my radar sites out there. We can just barely make out that little dot out there. I haven't quite figured out countermeasures. I'm not totally sure how that works. Oh look, expendables right there. Okay, we'll play with that in a little bit. So where is the target pod looking? Is it looking where my gun cross is? Ah, it is. That's cool. That's very interesting. Not my gun cross, my gun CCIP reticle. Alright. I think I missed. Do note that the default loadout here does not have tracers. Let's try again. And then after that we'll try playing with those countermeasures, because now I'm intrigued. Make another strafing run. Screw this one truck in particular. I shot at its shadow. Alright, we'll make one more pass and then we'll head home and fly some aerobatics. Having to reset my view a little bit. Also figuring out the correct zoom that you want for your display and your setup is also something that's definitely going to help you out when you get home from work or school or whatever to hop into your Viper. Yeah, the FCS definitely feels a lot more precise than the one in the Hornet. The Hornet FCS feels a little sloppy, I guess might be the correct word, but I know that's not the correct word that I'm looking for. I think the FCS and the Hornet just feels a lot more floaty and flowy, whereas the one in the Mirage is very, very restrictive, and the one here, there we go. Did we get the second one? We did, cool. Whereas the FCS here in the F-16, and especially in the Mirage, feels a bit more restrictive and a bit more just solid. Like a hesitation roll in the F-16 seems like it'd be a lot more, lot easier than in the FA-18. Alright, so let's get her out of air-to-ground mode, back into navigation mode. Alright, we got just over 4,000 pounds of fuel left. Should be no problem. Let's see. Fly towards waypoint 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, see, I'm just not seeing anything on the... I don't know if I'm being dumb or what. I'm not seeing anything that really displays navigation data. I would imagine this is like where underneath where it says nav, I would imagine that's like a heading and range, but that's not accurate. Also looks like the radar altimeter is on all the time. BO. Oh, okay, here we go. So range, or so we're going to waypoint 4. Range is 12. That's the time to that waypoint. Okay, cool. Got it. And we'll go ahead and fly a bit more low level down here. Let's check our time, see how much time we got left. Oh, we got 20 minutes. Perfect timing for using the rest of our gas and flying some aerobatics over Nellis. Now, my hypothesis for why my frame rate has been so spectacular here in DCS with the F-16 so far is the cockpit's pretty darn Spartan when it comes to stuff in your field of view. So when you're looking straight ahead at your HUD, you don't have a canopy bow, you don't have the canopy struts and then the tiny little porthole like in the F-14 to look through. There's a lot less 3D model in your way when you're flying the F-16. And so I think that contributes to increased performance. And the way the FCS is, and this increase in performance that I have noticed, it's just very slight for me because my rig is rather beastly at the moment, is I would say it's a fantastic jet for beginners to get into. I think that potentially, as I go through and learn more and more about it, might outclass my recommendation of the FA-18 being a good beginner jet in DCS world, because it has all the qualities of the F-18. It can do lots of stuff. It has that FCS where rudder pedals are really not even needed. I mean, look how restrictive the rudder pedals are. That it makes it like a very good jet for beginners. So there's a good chance the people of Las Vegas may have been hearing that live fire testing out there by Creech. We're seeing some QF4s on fire crashing and falling to the desert floor. So I think next video I think I may put out here as I learn the F-16 more and more is I want to put out a video about how to get DCS World to look beautiful. I get lots of comments on my videos, on my Discord, and even on my Patreon of how do I get DCS to look so good? Well, number one thing is I have a very powerful computer, but above and beyond that, there are some things you can do with settings and gamma and just the time of day you fly to make DCS World look as nice as you can possibly make it. I do think that the blue and white on the MFDs here is very, very cool in the F-16. There's no denying that. It is very, very cool looking. Now we'll go ahead and safe up the jet as we fly aerobatics. Yeah, it's interesting. The cockpit definitely changes how I want to position myself. You can also raise and lower the seat. I feel like maybe if I were trying to fly through prolonged IMC, I might want to put the seat down a bit and just have a bit more references in the cockpit rather than being stuck so far up into the clouds above the airframe. Alright, there's the runway. So let's go ahead and do a little impromptu air show routine and just feel her out, how she flies through different places in the envelope. It's going to be definitely like the F-14 in the way that I'm definitely going to have to keep an eye on and restrict how fast I'm flying. Whereas when I'm flying in the F-18 with people in F-14s, I'm usually got everything open, trying to keep up with them and trying to say, hey guys, slow down for me, slow down for me. Whereas I think now I'm going to be able to catch up and keep up with those F-14s, no problem. So we'll go ahead and bring this down to our home base waypoint. I'm also not a huge fan of how cluttered the F-16 HUD is. It's definitely cluttered. I haven't seen any declutter switches or anything yet, but hopefully there's some. So we'll go ahead and do a bit of a high altitude loop to start off, and maybe transition into a Cuban 8. Go throw her into full mill. And we'll come up over the top here. Gain some airspeed as we come on back down.
Altitude, pull up.
Not the best loop over the top, but we've got kind of an asymmetrical load going on right now. That was a little bit better. I was compensating a bit better that time. So we'll pull the throttle back. Bring her up over the top round here.
Altitude.
You can see those F-15Es and the F-16s that we started off by. We'll do a minimum radius turn. We'll bring it right up over our friends here on the flight line. And we can see we definitely have a bit of a crosswind to deal with, so we'll put in some rudder correction there. Flying low over Las Vegas is always very cool. The landscape is definitely very neat looking. So we'll do a nice photo pass right along the flight line area, like you would in an air show. And we'll slow her down.
Altitude.
Definitely still getting them used to the way she flies. Do another loop over the top. Definitely got to compensate for that asymmetrical load. A lot of people in the F-16 are going to make, I think, the same type of mistakes that they make in the F-18 in a dogfight. I think a lot of people are really going to yank hard on the stick and bleed off all their airspeed and make themselves easy prey as they get low and slow. I'm also very, very excited for all the different and creative skins that people are going to come up with. I know I definitely want an Israeli skin. I'm sure there'll be tons of Turkish skins, all kinds of European skins, Republic of China skins. Probably even some Japanese F2 skins. That'd be really cool. Those things look great. The way the Japanese paint them up. We got a little truck there along the highway. How are we doing on gas? Oh, we're doing okay. And we'll go for a max sustained turn here as we reset back up. So we're going to go full burner. Slow her down a little bit. I'm not totally sure what VA is in the F-16 at the moment. And of course that airspeed changes with altitude, heat, the ordnance we're carrying, amount of fuel we got on board, all these kinds of things. Making a 360-degree turn in full afterburner and exiting close to the same heading that we entered the maneuver in. Almost, oh, we got too fast there. Sorry for the broken windows, Las Vegas. Oh, watch out for that crane there. I'm sure there's a NOTAM out about that somewhere.
Altitude. Altitude.
And we'll slow it down a bit. Let people have a better look at the F-16 on the ground. Bit too fast for a slow speed pass, but what are you gonna do? Now, the high alpha capabilities in the F-16 are not nearly what the F-18 can do.
Bingo. Bingo.
Alright, no problem, Betty. Let's check our time. Alright, we're right on time. Time to go ahead and bring this girl in for a landing. So we'll go ahead and set up for a nice landing. Still not sure where the master caution reset button is. It's got to be around here somewhere. Oh, it's got to be these guys up here as different things come up. Don't see a fuel one. And look at that, already up to 450 knots. So we'll go ahead and go for an overhead pattern, since we're so fast. Yeah, I definitely think a lot of people are going to have fun with this jet here in DCS. Gonna have a little bit of a slight crosswind, or quartering tailwind, a little slight quartering tailwind. The electric trimmer on our stick here is a lot more responsive than the electric trimmer in the F-18. So I think people may have a much better time with trimming her out than they do in the F-18, especially when they get into an asymmetric load. I hate that when the rain kind of bugs out like that and does that weird shit. Alright, we'll pop the speed brakes. Hopefully this landing isn't total crap, but we'll do the best we can, as always. It's probably a bit too fast for the gear. Here they come. Yeah, we're definitely too fast. Okay, we can see our angle of attack box, and we're too high. We're definitely too high. We ballooned a little bit when the gear came down and the Flickus went into landing mode. Definitely keep in mind, I think I mentioned this earlier, that the jet is incredibly easy to tip over when you taxi. Without these big beefy landing gear on it of a Navy jet, things can go south pretty quick on the ground on you, or during landing. Interesting. Every time they get close to the ground, the HUD makes a little, like, flip. Oh, that was too hard. Pop the brake. Yep, that was definitely too hard. Whoa. It's not a Navy jet, Spud. It can't do that kind of stuff. And the main landing gear on the F-16 are very, very close together, so if you are taxiing a bit too fast and you try and make a tight corner to stay on the center line or something like that, you will have a bad day. You will tip this guy right over onto a wing, and you'll definitely get in trouble. So there we go, guys. There's my first landing and flight in the F-16. Yep, I definitely broke something. My right wheel is not spinning. Oh, neither is my left wheel. Wait, did my brakes get locked up? That was kind of weird. Alrighty. Oh, pulling the speed brakes. Alright. Pilot model looks pretty similar to our F-18 pilot model. That's okay. Not many people spend that much time looking at it anyway. And there we go. There's the first flight in the F-16. Well, aside the short little things I did while I was trying to figure out my control scheme and stuff, but more or less my very first flight in the F-16. So that was a lot of fun. I think a lot of people are really, really going to enjoy this product, and I think Eagle Dynamics did a really fantastic job with it. And it's very, very cool now that they have the tools to make amazing modules like this rather quickly, with work only starting just I think roughly about 8 months ago from what I saw on the forums. So very cool. Well, when you get home from work and school, enjoy your F-16, guys. I'm about to head off and do that kind of stuff myself.